Welcome to episode 12 of the Sports Geek podcast, presented by Seat Conference. On today's episode, we'll chat with good mate Todd Caflisch from the Detroit Red Wings, John Barrett from Trendsmap.com, and look at how the Sydney Thunder used a combination of traditional and digital media to welcome Mr. Cricket.
Welcome to the Sports Geek Podcast, the podcast built for sports digital and sports business professionals. And now, here's your host, who is now wearing only one custom Sports Geek Adidas, Sean Callanan.
Thanks, DJ Joel. My name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek. If you're a first-time listener, thank you very much for tuning in. Please send me a tweet at Sean Callanan and let me know that you're listening. You can always access the show notes for this show at sportsgeekhq.com/12, the number 12, and you can access the episodes for all the previous episodes with the same way. With over 3,300 downloads, I'm very grateful of everyone who's tuned in and supported the podcast. Packed show for today. We chat with John Barrett from Trendsmap.com to look at the sports Trendsmap activation that we did with the Manchester United A-League All-Stars game and have a look at a bit of the stats behind that. And also later on, we'll chat with Half on SEN about the Sydney Thunder's big signing of Mr. Cricket in the Big Bash lead. But first, proud to have Seat Conference on as a sponsor and a presenting partner of the Sports Geek podcast. I'm flying out next Friday to Kansas City. And so we're going to kick off the discussion with a good mate of mine, Todd Caflisch from the Detroit Red Wings, looking at the importance and the rise of IT in sports and how it's affecting things like sports analytics as well as in stadium. So here is our discussion with Francis Leach on ABC Grandstand.
ABC Grandstand. Sports coverage like no other.
Welcome to Saturday morning. Francis Leach here, and I love to catch up with Sean Callanan, the digital sports guru who talks sport in the digital space with us on a Saturday morning each week. Sports Geek HQ is where you can usually find him. G'day, Sean.
G'day, Francis. How you doing?
Not too bad. The digital crutches are out still. We've haven't been able to shake those just yet with the Achilles injury.
Getting there. Starting to put a bit of weight on it. So, starting to get around.
Now, you're heading off next week to the big daddy of sports tech conferences, SEAT. Tell people what that is.
Yeah, so SEAT stands for Sports Entertainment Alliance in Technology. So it'll be a really good meeting of sports IT executives in the CEO space. That's where the conference started, and that's where it was genesis of, so 7 years ago. But also last year in Boston, it expanded to also include the CRM guys. We've had a few of those guys on the show talking about the way that they're slicing and dicing the data and getting better access to customers. And then also the social and the digital space, there'll be a track for that as well. So it's a good discussion to have everyone be able to, go and learn all the different things in the different tracks. But then it's also great to have all of those key stakeholders together trying to solve the same problems. Because normally that there is a tendency for some of that relationship to be adversarial. The IT guy wants this, the marketing guy wants this, the sales and the social guys want this. It's good to be able to present, where there's been solutions where they've all worked together, and how it's worked together, because really it's the marketing guys want all the access and need the tech to be able to implement what they want to do. And the tech guys are the guys that are going to be able to roll it out. So, so it's going to be, there's going to be representatives from all the pro sports, also from places like NASCAR and also the NCAA, where there's lots of colleges trying to activate their sports programs and stuff like that. So
many Australians get across to this?
I think there is. I think there'll be a few Australians. I think the guys from ANZ Stadium are going to be there and a few others. So there's I've been talking to Christine. I think there is a few people coming from Australia all the way over to Kansas City.
Great place to be too, good old Kansas City. And an opportunity maybe to learn from some of the stadium experiences in particular, which are more highly geared towards the fan experience and the opportunity to use the digital space while sports events are on, because we've talked about this regularly, still a little bit behind in providing capacity at the MCG on Wednesday night. 90,000 people there. Everybody wanted to send a photo of themselves holding up a red scarf and singing "You Will Never Walk Alone." Nobody could get any access.
No, this is exactly right. So we're going to be, I'll be lucky enough to go to a game at Sporting KC, formerly Livestrong Park. It's now Sporting Park. I've discussed this before. It is one of the most teched up stadiums there is, and it helps that sort of the Google epicenter for Kansas City is right nearby, but some of the things that they've got from a technology point of view of allowing you to have that in-seat ordering, connected to the stadium, having the Wi-Fi. So I'm really looking forward to going to a game and seeing what the experience is like, but then getting a bit of a tour behind the scenes and seeing what they're doing from a point of view of digital signage, those kind of things.
Well, we're going to speak to someone and meet someone now who's basically working in that area to try to enhance the fan experience both in stadium and as game day ends and the preparation for the next game begins.
Yeah, so I think we've got Todd Caflisch on the line from who is the Director of IT at the Detroit Red Wings. G'day, Todd.
Hey. How you guys doing?
Well, mate. Just in terms of, I'm fascinated to know also from a perspective of different sports. How does the NHL differentiate itself in terms of the fan experience with social from the other sports? Or is there now sort of like a generic approach to it?
I wouldn't say such a generic approach. Really a lot of that responsibility falls on the teams. The NHL has kind of been out there in front. Kind of prodding the teams along, but it's really kind of up to the teams to do that. And we're working on a lot of those initiatives here in Detroit. With the Wings, and as far as very heavily involved in social media, very successfully pushing the brand out there, and working on projects that are going to expand our abilities to give people that enriched fan experience, for our Red Wings home games.
Todd, you've been in the IT game in the sports scene for a long time now. What's some of the things that from a rise of the importance of IT? We were chatting earlier in the week around this sport analytics and some of the things that have to be brought into stadiums now to help the coaches with all of these performance metrics and things like that. What are some of the things that you've had to implement from a stadium point of view to support that kind of advances in the technology and the sports science side?
Well, there's a lot of that, and starting to really go on. The NBA is doing a lot of it. I've kind of brought that to the Red Wings here. I don't think it's very widespread in the NHL yet, but really it boils down to trying to better build rosters. Especially with issues of salary cap, looking for kind of those diamond in the rough people, and just doing the metrics on performance, whether it's vertical leap or hand-eye coordination and foot speed and that sort of stuff. It's really analyzing those kind of basic things along with some others that help differentiate the different competitors. That and there's a lot of them out there that the teams, and coaches and scouts have to evaluate.
So yeah, we're seeing in the AFL at least a lot of the players now run around the park or the oval, if you will, with a little GPS monitor on the back of their jerseys to track how far they're running. In the NBA, they've got similar systems where they set up tracking devices from a video point of view. And is that something that you think that the NHL can sort of use to see how people are scoring from the left wing, or how the interchanges are happening?
Absolutely applicable. I know that there's a couple companies out there that are working on exactly that, using video optics that are pushed through software filters that will measure practically everything. I know, one specifically that, has been used in the NBA for the last few seasons. I mean, can tell you everything from, exactly physically where on a basketball court the ball bounced through an entire game, to, the actual miles per hour, let's say. I know a couple of years ago they tested in Boston with the Celtics, and, during a playoff game, Rajon Rondo stole the ball, and they were able to calculate that in his run to the basket for a steal and layup, he got up to like 19 miles an hour, that kind of thing, measuring, tendencies where players will spend time on the court physically, so that way you can build, better offensive plans or defensive schemes, knowing really kind of what, teams or specific players' tendencies are. It's all really kind of cool stuff. I mean, that system, specifically was designed, out of what was originally a missile tracking system for Department of Defense.
That's that's one of the things we've found, and like these stats are growing all the time. And from a digital department, where it's a content beast. We're always trying to produce more content for the fans, and some of those stats are just cool as a sports fan to know how fast Rajon Rondo is, or seeing heat maps of where certain players are always shooting from and things like that. But the battle that we find is as this information becomes more accessible from a team operations, the coach's point of view, the less likely they want to share it. Like they start treating this as this might be the secret source, and if the opposition gets hold of it, we don't want that to go out. So. Do you find, as these analytics start coming out, that the team, there's a bit of a fight and a bit of a push and pull between, the coaching staff who value this data, and it's effectively this money ball operation. They're trying to find that next big thing, or this sort of way of doing it, and the digital department that say our fans would love that in an infographic, or putting it up on the big screen on how fast our players are running.
Yeah, and there's a lot of push and pull like that, because there are some teams that are doing a whole lot with that, where the coaches are very into the digital analytics and measuring all that stuff. Others that aren't so much, but it's among all the leagues. NFL does a lot of that, with their own. A lot of them have their own programmers on staff doing a lot of proprietary stuff. Really, when it all comes down to it, they're all doing a lot of the same thing, just in specific ways, really kind of, tailored to the coaches and scouts' preferences. But, yeah, there's, the neat thing about the data is that there are a lot of, applicable pieces of it that, marketing, and social media can use, as, fun facts and, trivial kind of stuff that, they can sell to partners, to, build revenue on the business side as well. So, I think really the key is, kind of the IT guy that sort of, mediates both sides and makes it all work really smoothly. That's been kind of my goal, as an IT guy in the sports business is, not be, a propeller head all the time, but, also, be a salesman and a marketer kind of minded guy and see where, there are opportunities to leverage data and systems, to build revenue as well as build competitive advantage, on the ice or the court or whatever it might be.
Well, Todd, I'm looking forward to seeing you in Kansas City. One last question was in the news this week. The Madison Square Garden have just finished a renovation. You've gone through some renovations. They spent $968 million in renovating Madison Square Garden, and New York have just issued them with an eviction notice. They have to be out in 10 years. What do you think the reaction's going to be in at Madison Square Garden after putting in all that hard work to upgrade the stadium? I was really kind of shocked, to see that, and I don't know all the details of it. I'm sure, it probably will end up in the courts for years and years, and nothing will much change. The Madison Square Garden is an icon of New York City. I don't necessarily see that, changing anytime soon, especially with the investment that they've made over the last few years in upgrading, that building. It may force them to build an entirely different new, completely state-of-the-art, building, facility. But, there's still so much tradition, in that place that, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of plays out.
Yeah, sports fans in Australia as well would be very sad. Many have had an experience at Madison Square Garden. I think that it might be there for them to visit sometime in the future. Todd, we really appreciate your time and enjoy seat with our man Sean Callanan.
Good enough.
Thanks, mate.
Guys. Look forward to seeing you, Sean and KC.
Cheers.
Todd Caflisch there, Director of IT at Detroit Red Wings. Sean Callan, the Sports Guru, Sports HQ, Sports Geek HQ is where you find it. Thanks, Sean.
Cheers, mate.
We'll see you in Kansas City for SEAT 2013. You gotta be there, mate.
Thanks again to Todd Caflisch for joining us on ABC Grandstand. Very much looking forward to the SEAT conference. As they are the presenting partner of the Sports Geek podcast. If you haven't booked, there's still time. I know Christine and Chris are furiously getting the conference ready, but they'd be more than happy to have a few more attendees. Simply go to sportsgeekhq.com/seat2013. Check out the agenda and register. We'd love to see you there. I'll be presenting digital case studies with Philippe Dorr from NASCAR. We've actually got a list of cool sports digital activations we have to cut down, but more than happy to have a few more to choose from. If you've got an activation that you've done over the past 12 months in the digital space, doesn't matter what platform, please send me an email, sean@sportsgeekhq.com. More than happy to include it in the slide deck. I'm also looking forward to catching up with the folks from Madison Square Garden with that news that they've been given the 10-year eviction notice. So very impressed with what Katie, John and Sean have done from the renovation story from last year. Now that it's complete, I was looking forward to hearing about it, and I'm sure they'll have plenty to say on that eviction notice. As discussed on last week's show, we launched Sports Trendsmap with the A-League All-Star game playing Man United at ANZ Stadium. The game was a big success, and we had some great feedback from both the A-League and the FFA on how the activation went. So I caught up with John Barrett from Trendsmap to discuss a little bit about it. So first of all, welcome, John. You're the brains behind Trendsmap.com, and welcome to the Sports Geek podcast.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
No worries. So last week we had a pretty successful launch for Sports Trendsmap with the A-League and Manchester United. It was a unique experience, sort of tracking the tweets from the game and seeing the impact that Man United are having on all things Twitter. But do you want to give us a little bit of background of how you started Trendsmap?
Yeah, so Trendsmap was originally spawned out of an idea just over 4 years ago now to literally do something with tweets and location. Actually came out of a company that I was working for at the time called Stateless Systems. And at the time, there wasn't really much being done with tweets and location, but it was thought there was something unique that could be done given the huge amount of data that Twitter was generating, even back then. There was many, many millions of tweets. So we started to look at what we could do in terms of not only locating tweets, but also in generating trends. And it sort of grew from there. I had a bit of a background in maps, and then we looked at putting them on a maps and then making them interactive, being able to zoom in and out and bring up things like live tweets relating to the topics in any part of the world.
So you're really very much embedded in the geolocation space. Geolocation sort of had its fits and starts. Foursquare had a big boom there for a while. Then it sort of plateaued to a certain degree. Facebook's had a really good crack at it. One question I've had, and it's geolocation always has that security nature to it. You can geotag your tweets, but if you're geotagging your tweets, and it is one of the things that I advise all my athlete clients to do, is to turn off geotagging, because eventually everyone will know where they live if they're tweeting from their couch. So how do you get around that problem of not everyone using geotag? How does Trendsmap know where tweets are coming from?
So we actually use a few different methods. Overall, there is around about 2% of all tweets that do actually have the geotag turned on. So that's the sort of first port of call, and that's the easy data to collect, because that's comes along with all the other information in the tweet. And for countries like Australia, that's typically a latitude and longitude value, so we can pretty precisely locate that. So if someone's got that turned on and is in a game and tweet about it, then you can almost work out what chair they're sitting in.
Yep.
In the stadium. But because that's only a small percentage, it sort of limits the usefulness of it. Most of the way in which you can locate tweets is actually based upon the profile location. So when people sign up, they get asked their location. And most people will put in something like Melbourne, Australia, or possibly even just Australia. And it turns out that you can take that text and what we call geocoding of that and turn that into a latitude and longitude. And so for the most part, that allows you to get to around sea level. Around 40% of all tweets can be geolocated that way. There are a few other tricks of the trade that in some cases allow you to go a bit further, and in some topics you'll actually get better information from the location of people have, because people around certain topics will not be so silly with their locations. So some people put, at your back door or under the sea and all sorts of silly things, and they don't tend to come up to be an actual location.
So from a point of view, it's pretty similar to what I guess Twitter can find out about. If you've ever dived into the Twitter analytics, now that most accounts now have access to their Twitter analytics, the top city will come up pretty much. It'll pretty much be profile based. And I'm actually looking at an account right now that's pretty much saying Melbourne 07 AU and Melbourne VI AU. So there's still a bit of cleanup from Twitter's point of view of identifying that they're both the same city. From a point of view from a geolocation, finding out where the tags are. So I just want to sort of dive into some of the stats and what we saw from the A-League Man U game. I'm looking at the back end dashboard of analysis of the stuff behind the scenes. We just had just a tick over 10,000 tweets come through from about 3,800 different users, and so the good thing from the back end point of view, and I was producing some of the content for the guys at A-League to share throughout the night, is that I was able to tell them, that Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide in that order were the top tweeting cities from Australia that were tweeting during the match, and you're able to dive in and effectively dive into Sydney and find out what were the key terms from that. But what we did find, and I have spoken about it previously on the Sports Geek podcast, that Man United, still relatively new to Twitter. Unfortunately, despite the A-League saying this is the official match day hashtag, they pretty much were insistent that they were going to use MU Tour. So, we launched the Trendsmap on the Friday, and was pretty much well populated with data, because the way your Trendsmap works, you can sort of span different periods of data. So you can either go for a week or down to hours. Just want to sort of go through, our decision to make sure that we had a map that had enough Man United and enough A-League. We decided to effectively start injecting some of the MU Tour tweets and some of the decisions we had to make on the fly, in the fact that we can, in Sports Trendsmap, track multiple terms as our, I think, would you call them the pivot points of the map? Because they were the sort of things that, or is it anchor points of how the map's put together?
Yeah, so the whole basis of I suppose the core data that's used to then generate the displays is based upon a filter or a selection for tweets, and obviously the hashtag #ALVMU is very unique and specific to the match. So in the lead up, we're able to use that as the primary source of tweets. Now, there wasn't a huge amount of chatter going on, but spanning over a week, it aggregated into a nice amount, and there was lots of chatter, particularly coming out of the A-League account, and fans around the place that were starting to get excited about the match. So there was a bit of content being generated in terms of images, videos, vines included, that provided an interesting display. And then close.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, and so so we were able to bubble up that content. There was the key pictures that were being shared from training and that kind of thing, and the vines that Brian was taking from the A-League account was again getting bubbled up, and people can consume them in the Sports Trendsmap on the FFA site, and it was profiling the high-profile users. So A-League, Man United, obviously, but things like ANZ Stadium, 7 Sport, even the SBS guys, because they're obviously really tied in with football, and then some of the more secondary players, whether they be players on the pitch and also journalists, were also being profiled.
Yeah, and so because Manchester United were on a tour, there was a lot of talk about #MU Tour, which is the official tag that they were using with regards to their other matches, both past and upcoming. So in order to not pollute this data with irrelevant stuff, well, not relevant with respect to the sport, but not obviously specific to this game, we waited until the actual day of the match to then start including #MU Tour tags. And so that from before the game until just after, we were collecting data for both ALVMU and for MU Tour. Yeah. Indeed, if there are any other official accounts that are specific to that match during that time period, then they can be included as well to get the best picture possible for the event that you're tracking.
Yeah, and so the other thing that we did from a game day point of view and just sort of keeping from a brand protection point of view for the A-League was we used the stop words dashboard that's in the back end of Trendsmap to be able to remove particular keywords that were trending just as a byproduct of being related to those key hashtags. So we were able to remove gambling operators that were trying to promote the gambling options for the game as they weren't official partners, and a few people doing retweet competitions for Socceroos gear and A-League gear that were just, again, trying to piggyback, if I can say it properly. So there's a bit of ambush marketing happening, so we're able to remove those from the map, which is, was advantageous to the A-League. And then the other part of it was pretty much, serving up some of that content to allow the fans to know that, here's what the top tweets were. This is what the heat map looks like. And I think the only other thing that we saw, because we had this sort of David and Goliath battle with Man United, even though it's still new to Twitter, such a big presence, and everything they would do at getting retweeted. And when we started pushing in those MU Tour tweets, obviously Man United, and if you look at it now, still dominate the top tweets on the board there. I think going forward, if we're in that sort of match-up mode, a specific match, we might split out those two boards and effectively say, here's the top Man United related tweets and here's the top A-League related tweets. And because we have all that data in the back end, that's relatively easy and flexible from what we can show the users in that front end product, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's there's certainly a lot of flexibility in the way it's sliced, and particularly you notice in that example that what Man United said certainly dominated the content during the match, but we were able to bring that in. And the other thing that was interesting was that whilst obviously there's a lot of fans around the world, and particularly in Melbourne, Sydney still was, obviously that's where the match was being played, but Sydney was still the top tweeting city for the match. Normally with soccer matches, particularly the Socceroos, you typically see Melbourne ranking a bit higher than Sydney, and not so surprisingly, Manchester was third in line. But what gets interesting from there is Jakarta was fourth. Yep. So it really gives you insights into the fan base as well, and where they actually are and who's following it. It's been quite amazing to see just how bright Indonesia has been, and it certainly is one of the largest and fastest growing Twitter nations in the world. There's a huge uptake of smartphone usage in Indonesia. With Twitter capabilities. And
the other thing that we didn't get to sort of dive into, but again, it's available in the back end, is once you do have the information, whether it be here's the top users, here's the top cities, you can then filter on that data. So you can go on and potentially click on the mentions of potentially 7 Sport who are covering the match and see related hashtags around that match. So it might be people talking about the match using the 7 Sport hashtag, or talking about Fango, or you can see all the different top users. So it would have been their talent on the TV. So it does give you different views of the data. So I think that's the other opportunity coming out of Sports Trendsmap is the content pieces that you can provide out of the game. just to, again, give you that different representation of the content. So it was really good to see it live and see some of the data coming through. And, the feedback from the guys of the FFA and A-League were, they really loved the way it looked, and the fan feedback was really good. But I think we've definitely got some ideas to tweak it going forward, whether it be in an event style like this match, or even a club-based, brand-based version of this, to be able to, integrate a bit more of sponsors involved, because really we pretty much went with a white-labelled fan engagement one where we didn't have any sponsors involved, but there's obviously options in there to put sponsor branding throughout the Trendsmap.
Yeah, and it's it can be done at so many different levels, sort of following a team throughout the season on an ongoing basis, a team during a match, an actual match from the point of view of both teams, obviously the point of view of a league, be it the league as a whole or the individual teams, or different ways, sliced so many different ways, and also by location. You start to see things like where the fan bases are, what cities are they more in than others, and who's really getting behind the team's win.
All right, John. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to working with you again on the next Sports Trendsmap.
Yes, same here. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.
If you want more info on Sports Trendsmap, I've included a short case study on the ALVMU in the show notes, sportsgeekhq.com/12, or you can go to sportsgeekhq.com/sportstrendsmap. We think it fits for individual teams, leagues, or major one-off events. Thanks to Shane Harmon. The noise you can hear underneath this is from the game, and he just captures as Robin van Persie scores the final goal of the match. So for our final segment on the podcast, we chat with Daniel Harford from 1116 SEN. As I was up at ANZ Stadium only a couple of days after the Manchester United A-League All-Stars game to help the Sydney Thunder in the Big Bash League kick off what was signings week, where they were able to introduce Mr. Cricket.
Sean Carolan, our sports digital media guru for sportsgeekhq.com.
We love a Wednesday when Sean comes in to help us out with the world of social digital media sports stuff. He is the sportsgeekhq.com man, and he's back again. G'day, Sean.
G'day, Huff. How you doing?
Going very well. You're in your Sydney Thunder hoodie today. Now, that's game, considering they were no good last year, but they've had a big addition during the week.
Yeah. So I was up there on Monday, and they signed Mr. Cricket himself. Mike Hussey has signed with the Thunder. So pretty much what I was there was to sort of help just oversee all things digital.
Yep.
And it really just shows that you really want to integrate everything that you're doing. So we weren't, most of the publicity and stuff was coming from TV. They had him come in on a chopper. He did a bit of a tour, and so you saw that. It went on the news. So they had all the news crews there. We were obviously using, we launched it, sent out an email campaign to all the members early in the morning. It was in the papers. Richard Hines' first article with the Daily Telly was with Mike Hussey. So it was just about integrating it sort of across the day. At 12 o'clock, the chopper arrived and they had all the news crews there. Channel 10 obviously got a big slice of it because they're running all the Big Bash all summer.
Of course.
So they're looking forward to it, and it's going to be an action-packed commentary box in there. I reckon if they get the guys from the commentary box on the field, more people will be watching because they've got Gilly and Viv and Punter.
Viv's doing it too.
Viv's in the commentary.
Punter, Flem and Mark Waugh as well.
Yeah. So it is pretty much anyone who's held a willow in the last 20 years is going to be in the box. So if we had the Channel 10 team versus the Channel 9 team, I think the Channel 10
ESPN team would wipe the floor with them. But yeah, so there was a lot of that. Then all the press guys got their coverage, and there was a bit of banter backwards and forwards with the guys at the Scorchers because everyone in West Australia was a little bit displeased with Mike going. But the idea behind the Big Bash is that it doesn't have that state allegiance, and they're more franchise-like, like the AFL, the NRL, and that kind of thing. So, there is a bit more freedom of movement of guys. And then the day wrapped up us telling everybody, hey, tune into the news, and they did the live cross with Tim Bailey doing the weather on the Channel 10 News. So it was a long day, but I must say, I was following along with the crutches, and Mr. Cricket, what a top bloke. We went to get in the car. He goes, "No, it's all right, mate. You hop in the front seat. I'll be right in the back." Because I've got the crutches.
Front.
What a good bloke he is. So
good man.
And he pretty much asked answered every question about the Thunder, and then pretty much every second question was, "So when are you coming back for the Ashes?"
Right.
And he was pretty much, he played a pretty straight bat. He's quite happy in retirement.
We are seeing a lot of activation, a lot of announcements about the Big Bash this week, the last couple of days in particular. How big a sport will it be digitally, do you think?
Well, I think the fact that, and this is where, I think TV is a big thing. Like, I think the Foxtel guys did a really good job with the Big Bash for the first 2 seasons. Yep. But it's now going to be on free-to-air, and so it's going to be more accessible to more people. I mean, the subscription TV rate in Australia is around 25 to 30%, so not everyone, I have Foxtel, you have Foxtel, but not everyone does. Yep. So it's going to be far more accessible to more people. And if Channel 10, sort of allow the digital, allow people to have that chatter and talking on Twitter and a bit of integration like that kind of stuff, I think it's going to be, go gangbusters. In the similar way that, if you want to look back in the past, what Channel 10's coverage of the NBL did all those years ago when it was on prime time, really gave it a spike. So, I think it's going to be great for Channel 10. There's going to be a lot of cricket on Channel 10 over summer, but it's either that or Simpsons repeats. So, it's going to be good for everyone.
50-50, I don't know which way I'm going to sit.
So, it'll be great for the Big Bash. There'll be a lot of coverage of it, and potentially, that will flow on to digital. But really, the idea is to get people to the games. So the fact that people have more access to it and start knowing the names, because there's a lot of names that people don't know. A lot of these younger guys that are just playing Big Bash that are really state cricketers or under. We really want to make sure that more people know about them.
Well, they certainly will do if they follow you, sportsgeekhq.com, because you're all over this sort of stuff. There's no surprise that Huss has ended up with the Sydney Thunder when he knew that you worked there. Well done on landing the deal. Good to see you, mate. Look forward to your company soon.
Okay, cheers, mate.
Like the Sports Geek podcast? Find us on facebook.com/sportsgeek.
That's it for another Sports Geek podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this one. If you did, please share it on Twitter and LinkedIn. A special bonus Sounds of the Game episode this week as Liverpool came to town and 95,000 people filled the MCG and sang You'll Never Walk Alone. Absolutely spine-tingling stuff, so stay tuned after the credits. Thank you to my Uncle Marty for sending it through, as well as Brian Gibson from the FFA. Again, send in those audio clips. I'm looking forward to having one from the Kansas City Royals game and also Sporting KC from Kansas City from next week from Seed Conference. So next week's show will be live from Seed Conference in Kansas City. If you're not going to be there, be sure to follow the hashtag Seat2013. And if you are attending, get those tweeting fingers ready as we want to make sure that those non-attendees will have a severe case of FOMO, fear of missing out, as it is a killer lineup. And congrats to Christine and Chris for putting together a great conference. So until next week from Kansas City, my name is Sean Callanan from Sports Geek, and I will speak to you then.
Please leave a review on iTunes. Go to sportsgeekhq.com/iTunes.
We'll see you in Kansas City for SEAT 2013. You gotta be there, mate.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Geek Podcast.